lost my place. I knew it was going to happen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Innal hamda lillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nastahdihi wa na'udhu billahi shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. فمن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم. I don't know what to say about this weather, man. It's beautiful. You know, I lived in Chicago my entire life, and this is the driest and warmest autumn I can remember. Although, you know, with what we've learned from climate scientists, I don't know if I should be saying alhamdulillah, astaghfirullah. I don't, you know, I just know it's really nice, mashallah. It is an honor to be with all of you. This is a class called Word to the Wise, and what we aim to do is to offer relevant, practical, easy to implement spiritual advice for all seekers, whether you have previous and prior experience with Islam or not, whether you are practicing Islam at a very high level, an intermediate level, or not even practicing Islam at all. We want you to come into this space. We want you to feel comfortable. We want you to experience the fraternity of the brothers, the sorority of the sisters. Relax. Today, we have goldfish. As Mike was saying, this is fundraising season. No, I'm just kidding. Got to get our snack game up a little bit. No, just kidding, mashallah. No. They're colored goldfish. They're colored goldfish. That's different. That's different, mashallah. No, we appreciate the volunteers at Tetleef, the staff. They go a long way to make sure that we're comfortable, and we love them for that. Mashallah, we have been reading a classical book called Taj al-Arus. This is a book of Proverbs, spiritual advice. We go through them one by one, and I have you know that we are actually on number 236, right? And we started at one like 3 years ago or something like that. So we do like one every week, sometimes two, if we're lucky, three. Today, the author begins, one whose limbs bear fruit has a heart that irrigates, his tongue with remembrance of God, his eyes with being closed to worldly temptations, his ears with listening to knowledge, and his hands and feet with going forth in pursuit of good. This is another way of saying that everything changed, but I find that some of those authors don't understand the self. It doesn't begin even with language. Change begins with the heart. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Inna fil jasadi mudgha." In the body there's a lump of flesh. The first thing you must purify before thinking about your behavior at all is that heart. It is the center, the core, the essential aspect of your being. And if you look at the da'wah, if you look at the Prophet Muhammad's call to Islam, he spent 13 years in Mecca only calling the people to faith. There was nothing about do's, don'ts. At that time, alcohol permissible. People would drink. The only thing the Prophet would tell them, don't come to the prayer while you're intoxicated. Wait until you're sober to pray. People used to drink. Sayyidah Aisha, may God be pleased with her, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, she said, if the Prophet started his mission with do this, don't do this, nobody would have followed him. Right? That's not the way you change. Right? Somebody becomes Muslim, the first thing we do this, don't do this. You got to do this, eat this, don't eat this, go here, don't go there. You only eat a burger in this place, don't eat a burger in that place, do this. That's not the way it works. The heart must be attached to God. You have to clean off those receptors so that one is actually in the divine presence. Then those commands become easy, right? One wants to express their devotion to the Creator through obedience, through doing what he told us to do, through abstaining from what he told us to abstain from. But first, the heart must be connected. This is why when somebody becomes Muslim, yes, I think it's good to talk to them about, the obligations that they're assuming in accepting Islam. But don't overwhelm people with those obligations, right? Don't make Islam this very restrictive, very rule-based. Some people are intimidated by that, right? Now you have that rare breed of person that is excited by that. We got to fast 30 days. That's what I'm talking about. Let's do this. But that's rare. Most people, Allah, just focus on God, God, talking to God, being with God, perceiving God, contemplating God, reflecting upon God. We don't have to get into anything else. I can't tell you how many people say this to me. Look, I want to become Muslim, but I got some things going on in my private life. Let me deal with those things, then I'll come back to you. Whenever someone says that, I know you're thinking about Islam as a set of rules. And what you're saying, I'm not ready to follow all of those rules, right? But that's not what Islam is about. Islam is about having a relationship with God in which you are trying to submit. That's what Islam is about. You enter that covenant wherever you enter that covenant, and then you begin working on that submission. He says, but if the heart is pure, you will find that it irrigates the tongue with the remembrance of God. Now we get to speech. First it was the heart. Now it's the tongue. And our tongues, subhanallah, to Allah be the glory, we have a very deep connection to whatever we talk about. This is just, an undeniable aspect of the human condition. If you talk about something often, that thing is definitely real to you. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a hadith Qudsi, a sacred tradition, if you remember me, you will find me before you. Many people say, I can't feel God. I can't perceive God. Are you remembering God? If you remember me, you will find me before you. This is the power of speech. We are what we talk about. Because what we talk about is a reflection of what we think about. And even if someone is absent-mindedly saying, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Subhanallah, just the fact that the tongue is being moistened with God's name will have an effect on the heart. I can't tell you, and some of the lessons, some of the places where I've seen this, you wouldn't imagine, like radio stations. If you hear a song over and over again, you will find yourself humming that tune, saying that tune, right? Repeating the lyrics to yourself. It might not even be a song you like. You just find yourself saying that. Like, what's happening? Because what? You're hearing it all the time, right? Whatever you remember almost becomes a part of you. So if the heart is in submission to God, you will find that the tongue is remembering God. There was a man who came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, all of the do's and don'ts of Islam are too much for me, right? Some of us might find it shocking that people would come to the Prophet, peace be upon him, with this kind of admission. Hey, this is all too much for me. The Prophet said, "What alayka bidhikr," remembrance, right? Remembrance. Just remember God, right? Remember God and just fulfill your obligations. Just remember God. Don't think about anything else. Just remember God. Kalimatani khafifatani ala lisani. Two statements, light on the tongue. Thaqilatani ala al-mizani, heavy on the scale. Habibatani ila rahmani, beloved to the Rahman. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah al-azim. Glory to Allah and praise to God. And He is azim. He is magnificent. Easy. But in a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, and he is sadiq and masduq, he only tells us the truth. He said, if a person approaches Allah with this remembrance, even if their sins are as numerous as the ocean, they will be forgiven. Just dhikr, just remember Allah. And he says, the sign that the heart is alive is that the eyes are closed to worldly temptations. La ilaha illallah. One thing that I've recently come to appreciate is that although we're all looking at the same things, we don't all see the same things, right? Some of us, we walk down any public thoroughfare and we see lots of things that tempt us to do wrong. We see lots of things that, oh my God, man, this is, I'm under duress just being here. And then some people just don't have that experience, man. Right? It's not, subhanAllah, I became Muslim when I was 16. So even the stuff I did before I became Muslim, and I did some stuff, even at 13, 14, 15, we were, shall I say, advanced. I did some stuff. But I really couldn't get into anything that wasn't, juvenile. I really couldn't cut up like I would have been able to if I was, in my 20s, 30s. So things that some people find really, really tempting, like alcohol, for instance, that has never been a temptation for me. Like me walking down the street, walking past a bar, walking past a liquor store, New Year's Eve, it don't make no difference to me. That ain't my thing. It's like, whatever. That's not a temptation for me. Someone else, bro, if it's that time, Saturday night, nothing to do, it's almost like his palm is itching. Somebody passed me the weed, it's like, that's one of the ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevates an individual is that they find themselves tempted less. That's like something that, and I've seen this, something that you really had a taste for, something that maybe you had a strong inclination to. You start practicing your deen, you don't even incline toward that anymore. It's like, man, that's not even, it's not even a big thing. I personally find the company and the experiences of people recovering from addiction compelling, inspiring, humbling. People that can tell you, man, there used to be stuff that I was chemically dependent upon to function. And I've been sober for 30 years. I've been sober for 20 years. Now, they're still vigilant, right? They're still vigilant. They don't, treat their addiction like, oh, that's past me, but it doesn't contain the same kind of temptation for me. And it once controlled my life. Allah can do that for you. Your heart can do that for you. When I actually used to go with a family member, hold on one second. La ilaha illallah. I used to go with the family member to some 12-step meetings. One of the things that I observed was that the first principle of 12-step was belief in a higher power. It wasn't a religious organization. But if you wanted to enter recovery, if you wanted to enter treatment, you had to profess belief in a higher power. And this even then was peculiar to me. I was very young. I used to attend these meetings with my father. And I asked my dad, why is that so important, man? He said, because many of us know that left to our own devices, Heroin has already overpowered me. Cocaine has already overpowered me. Alcohol has already overpowered me. But I believe in a God that can redeem me. You see? I have to believe in that because I don't believe that I can do it alone. I know that I can't do it alone. What he's saying is that one of the signs that the heart is awakening is that those things that used to make you sweat, oh my God, there she is. Oh my God, there he is. You say, what we had that was years past, I'm practicing my deen now, it's not even a thing anymore, man. Right? That's one of the signs that the heart is enlivened. The eyes are closed to that kind of worldly temptation. He said, a person acquires an appreciation for knowledge. Like everybody here, man, it's Tuesday night in Chicago and the weather is good. You guys could be anywhere doing anything. And you want to be here at Tet Leaf? Eating goldfish? You want to come to Tet Leaf and eat goldfish? Nah, it's not the goldfish. Although we love Aria, mashallah. It's not the goldfish. Something inside of you enjoys being in a space where God is being spoken of. This is a sign that your heart is good. Doesn't mean that I'm riveting or I'm compelling as a presenter. Something in you enjoys coming into a space where God is being remembered. This is a sign that the heart is alive. Some people find spaces like this absolutely off-putting. As soon as they walk in, oh man, come on. Let me hurry up and get out of here. What is this? These people in here, what do they want? They want to talk about God? Come on, let's go somewhere else. And as soon as they go somewhere else, they're immediately comfortable. Right? They go to the bar, yeah, I'm comfortable here. Right? I'm comfortable. I feel good. For someone like that, I would say, look at how your heart is responding to different spaces. And I can especially say that about Tet Leaf because here, I know that nobody is going to be accosted, nobody is going to be attacked, nobody is going to be belittled, nobody is going to be marginalized, nobody is going to... It's just a good space when we're just sitting in here, kicking it, eating goldfish, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all we're doing. And if a person really feels like this space, I can't take it. You know, there's a verse in the Quran. The Quran is so deep, man. When Allah Ta'ala says one of the prayers of the believers is don't give us ghillan lilladhina amanu. Don't give us a hatred for the believers. I've seen people that something has happened to them that they genuinely have a distrust and even a disdain for religious people. And it's not like those self-righteous, judgmental religious people. Just people that I just want to worship God. That's it. Ugh. Why? Right? It agitates them. I just want to pray. You know, whatever you do, it's cool, man. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying anything. It's cool, man. But I need to pray. Something is happening with that heart, right? We should always, and this is why sometimes, even when Muslims get on my nerves, and sometimes y'all get on my nerves. Yeah, y'all get on my nerves sometimes. I try to remember, but these are people from the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even when they are mistaken, I appreciate the fact that they're dedicated to worshiping God, man. He said, and his hands and feet with going forth in pursuit of good. MashaAllah. Next proverb. He said, and I want you to take this with a grain of salt. Sometimes you will find in books like these a general frustration with society, right? But we must remember that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man qala ma ahlaka an-nas huwa ahlakuhum." Whoever says, the people are terrible, he's the worst of them, right? So this isn't licensed to be judgmental, but this is one scholar talking about his time, his place, and just offering some criticism. He says, whoever frequents the company of the people of our time exposes himself to disobeying God. Such a person is like one who places a dry firewood into a fire and hopes that it will not ignite. They hope for the impossible, for it has all but occurred. In other words, be very careful of context in which the disobedience of Allah is being normalized, in which forgetting about Allah is being normalized. You know, I was talking to one of my colleagues, and they said, if you go to a good American college or university, and you are studying the humanities, when you enter the classroom, if you believe in God, you have some explaining to do. When you enter the classroom, you believe in God? Oh my God. That was the joke, by the way. You believe in God? Oh my God. You have some explaining to do. Because, and you know, my teacher, Dr. Sherman Jackson, he wrote a book called The Islamic Secular. That's a dense book, man. That's a dense book. But one of the concrete takeaways from that book is that people of our time, when they say be objective, a secular perspective is seen as objectivity. That's objective. But if you believe in God, you're biased. If you don't believe in God, and I'm not saying that belief in God is normative and secularism is non-normative, but both of them are highly subjective, experiences and opinions. But for one to be treated as normative, you don't believe in God, that's regular. You believe in God, oh, you're backwards, you're retrograde, you're troglodyte person of the past. That. Beware of a context like that, because in a context like that, you will start to feel self-conscious about your belief in God. Like, man, is there something wrong with me? Man, right? Beware of a context in which people treat religion as though it's something dispensable. And they see you like, well, I can't really treat anybody like that. Come on, what's the big deal, man? Beware of that kind of context. Because if you are there, you will be affected inevitably. This is also a part of who we are as human beings. We are impacted by our surroundings. This is why, this is for my Talk Thursday. It's for my Talk Thursday, inshallah. This is why whenever someone leaves Islam, and subhanAllah, I've talked to many ex-Muslims, and I've noticed two things. One, a lot of them have had very bad relationships with their fathers. Their family life is usually strained. And much of the consternation, much of the tension is around religion, religious practice. So it's a source of consternation for them, something that quite frankly, just from the standpoint of stress and living one's life being ill at ease, it seems much healthier to dispense with religion. So for anyone who's a father here, and I don't assume most of you are, I'm a father, take note of that. Take note of that, right? A lot of the ex-Muslims that I've talked to, they had bad relationships with their fathers, bad relationships with their families. The second thing that I noticed was that they had mistaken their disaffection with Islam as free thinking, when really they had simply accepted a different plausibility structure. This wasn't like they were thinking in a vacuum. No. You formed these ideas about religion in a context, usually the university campus, that made ideas about religion seem provincial, narrow-minded, backwards, stupid. And you think you came to these conclusions on your own. You did not. There is a context that calibrated you, right? That made you think about freedom in certain ways, made you think about liberty in certain ways, made you think about the self in certain ways. And the result of that activity was that you left religion. It's not just you. Just like a person that embraces religion, it's not just you. You are living in a faith-affirming context. It's just like when we come here, being Muslim seems very normal. Somebody gets up, calls the adhan, calls the iqamah. It seems very normal. Yeah, it's almost like, we all seem like sensible people. Some of us even intelligent. Oh, yeah, we're all Muslim. Alhamdulillah, it's normal, right? How I understand what he's saying, beware of a context that is negatively affecting your iman. And always look at context. Don't just look at you as an individual. When you're thinking, why am I feeling something? I remember one sister, and this is kind of related to this. She said that she was overseas studying Arabic. And she said just because she was overseas, she, wasn't really thinking about like her appearance in the same way. She said she felt good about herself, and she was in Syria, she was studying Arabic. She said when she came back to the U.S., she immediately started feeling like something was wrong with how she looked. Nothing had changed about how she looked, right? She was receiving messages from her context. There's something wrong with how you look. There's something wrong with your weight. There's something wrong with how you dress. Often when this happens to people, they just think, what's happening to me as an individual? No, it's not you. It's where you are. It's not you. So some people, they go to college, they say, religion is starting to seem less plausible to me. I can't really feel my faith. It might not be just you having an individual crisis of faith. You are sitting in classrooms where theories are being taught in which disbelief is the norm. This is normative. You think you're not affected by that? No, you will be affected by that, right? So be very careful about contexts that undermine your faith. Be very careful of different ways of thinking that undermine your faith. Next proverb. He said, to be popular among people is to be singled out for affliction. Subhanallah. I was once with a friend of mine, and he said, man, Ubaidullah, you're popular. I said, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. I said, astaghfirullah, man, astaghfirullah. He said, damn, I didn't say that was a good thing. I just said, you're popular. And that's when it hit me. We don't even see that as a neutral statement. If someone says, man, you're popular, that's just a neutral statement. I started like my false humility joint, like it was something, man, you're popular. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah, man, astaghfirullah. Here, he says, being popular is to be singled out for affliction. Meaning, when people seek popularity, the same people that love to see you shine, they love to see you fall. I don't know why we are that way, but we tend to be that way. The same people that were cheering for you when everything was going great, these will be the same people disparaging you when things turn. This is just the way that it happens. In fact, I think that there's a certain level of popularity that a person gets to where people are waiting for something scandalous. They're just waiting. And as soon as that thing comes out, they're going to say, what? I told you. I knew it. There are a few public figures like Barack Obama. I know they're just waiting. They're just waiting. LeBron James, waiting. Right? Elon Musk, they don't even have to wait. They don't even have to wait. They're just waiting. Here he says, being popular among people, right? And by the way, popularity is not the same thing as being held in high esteem among people that you value. Popularity is not that. Like, I value everybody here. It is important what you all think of me. I want you to think of me as a good brother, a sincere brother, a family man, a man who tried to be a good father to his children, tried to be a good husband to his wife. I care what you think about me. Popularity is what people that I don't even know exist think about me. That's popularity. This isn't, we have a real relationship. We sit together reading and studying about God. We have a real relationship. Popularity is related to reputation. People that I don't even know. People that don't really know me, but they know of me. That's popularity. Here he's saying to be popular in that way is empty. It does not mean anything, man. It does not mean anything. In fact, it is if one is like that or one is seeking that, prepare yourself for some kind of affliction. Prepare yourself for some kind of trial. But here he continues, one who knows the people and lives among them is not like one who does not know them. That's what I'm talking about. The people that you live among, that you work out at the gym with them, you go to school with them, that's not popularity. These are people that I actually know these people, right? Popularity is like that people in distant places, have you heard of, do you know so-and-so? Right? I'm trying to think, entertainers are popular, right? We don't know them, they don't know us, but we know of them, right? Athletes are popular, politicians are popular. We don't know them, they don't know us, but we know of them. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about the people you live among, right? No. He says, for while you may be God conscious, you may fall into the company of people who are not. As a result, they will draw you into all sorts of behaviors that subjugate your spirit. You know, we were talking about this last week, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but your character is affected by the people you surround yourself with. Next proverb. He said, nothing destroys hearts except a lack of fear of God. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. You know, this is something that I think people in the modern age have some difficulty with. Our fear of God, and I think I said this a couple weeks ago, is not like the fear of someone that we think is vengeful and unforgiving. It's not that fear. No, we know that God is loving and merciful. Our fear of God is the fear of an entity that we know has unlimited power and can do whatever it wants to do at any time and is always observing us. That's the kind of fear that we're talking about, right? We're talking about the fear of one who is awesome, right? That kind of fear, right? People, because I think maybe we loaded up some time ago on the fire and brimstone and, you know, people being condemned to hell, I think it was necessary to balance that with a much more approachable, a much more loving depiction of the Creator. It was necessary to provide that balance. But if we see the pendulum swinging in the other direction, that now anything goes, there's no fear of God, there's no fear of reprisal, there's no awareness that we're talking about the Almighty, then we have to come back to center. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he famously said, my hope in God is such that if it were announced that everybody was going to hell and only one person was going to heaven, I would hope that that one person was me. And my fear of God is such that if it were announced that everybody was going to heaven and only one person was going to hell, I would fear that that one person was me. That's balance. Once a colleague said that he gave a friend of his a copy of the English translation of the Quran. The person wasn't a Muslim. And he said they read it and said to him, I enjoyed the read, but the God of the Quran is kind of bossy. It's kind of bossy. And he said that he simply said to him, if you were all powerful, would you negotiate with people? Is there something to negotiate about? Because God is all powerful, only then can we understand God's mercy. God, if God wanted to be vengeful and unforgiving, he would still be God. But it is part of God's divine nature to be forgiving and be merciful. But he is all powerful. That should be enough to make us say, whoa, right? The word ittaqillah or taqwa, it means to be aware of God, right? Take wiqaya, take protection. Don't expose yourself to God's anger, right? He continues next proverb. The good heart is one that is not distracted from God by good things. Subhanallah. All of us should be familiar with the verse, Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Truly God is with those who are patient. One of the reasons that people in difficulty enjoy that ma'iyah, they enjoy that they enjoy that companionship with God, is because things in the world are not working for them. So they're seeking something beyond the world. The people who forget God are the people for whom things are working in the world. You see, everything is working for me. Everything is good for me. I'm financially secure. I'm happy. I have a life of adventure. I have a life of fulfillment. He said, the good heart is the heart that is not distracted from God by good things. See, a lot of us don't realize that. I don't consider this a paradox, but I think it's interesting that wealth and ease and facilitation are tests. Poverty and deprivation and oppression are also tests. We have been told to ask for the former and not the latter. We ask for ease, we ask for facilitation, but it is proven that ease, facilitation, opportunity, these things deaden the heart maybe more than hardship, right? A day of difficulty and patience is spiritually equal to a day of ease and gratitude, right? I think, and this is just my perspective, I think it is easier to fall on hard times and remember God, because you're remembering God because you're asking for help. This is difficult for me. Than it is to fall on really easy times and to remember God. You're too busy enjoying what you've been given. It's too enjoyable, right? There's something about that kind of worldly attainment that it just, it almost, it gives us a kind of heedlessness. It makes us heedless. Things are just going too good. Remember the story in Surah Al-Kahf. In Surah Al-Kahf, you have this story of these two unnamed neighbors. One is given a magnificent garden. And as he is looking at this magnificent garden that produces cash crops, he starts saying things like, I don't even know if this day of judgment stuff is real. And if it is real, God is going to give me something even better than this. he says to his neighbor, أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَعَدُّ نَفَرًا. I have more money than you. I'm more popular than you. He's like all of this. The thing about that story that is really cautionary is that the story has no villain. Both of them were believers. And at the end of the story, he actually repents. Once his garden is destroyed, once he loses everything, he actually comes back and says, I wish I would have never attributed a partner to God. The scary thing is that he had so much money that the money actually was a source of his becoming heedless. He wasn't like, some people read that story every week and they think of him as like a disbeliever. He wasn't a disbeliever. He was a believer. He just had that much money. I've talked to some very wealthy people and they've told me, you don't know the test of having that much money. He had that much money that he started the day of judgment. I don't know, man. Maybe not. I'm like, the money is getting good to him. I don't know, man. I don't know. I ain't really thinking about that. I'm too busy enjoying this AP right now. Didn't even really think about day of judgment. I'm about to take one of the Lambos out, do something like that. I mean, but you keep praying about the day of judgment. I think I'm gonna go do this. Got a date with one of these models a little later. But yeah, keep that prayer thing going, man. More power to you, brother. No, I'm serious. I've seen people that at the height of their attainment just couldn't take faith seriously, right? It's like heaven. And you look at them and you think, is it that you don't think you're ever gonna die? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about a person, he says, فَيَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَ. A person who thinks their money will make them immortal. And some of us read that like, man, whoever thought money would make them immortal? Bro, no, bro, it's real. Some people really treat personal acquisition like it will make them immortal. He says one of the signs of a good heart is that that heart is not distracted by good things. That even as you become wealthier, even as your business becomes stronger, you are still as devoted as you were when you were praying for those things. That's a sign that you have a good heart. That someone can say, man, I knew him when he was trying to get the business off the ground, and I still know him now that the business is a Fortune 500 company. Man, he's always been serious about his faith, serious about his family. It didn't change him. It didn't change her. She's always been like that. It didn't change her. She's always been like that. That's a sign that her heart is good. She's always been like that, right? Look at Qarun. Qarun, another very interesting figure in the Quran. Qarun was an Israelite in Egypt, which means he was a muwahid. He was a worshiper of one God. But he had so much money. He had so much wealth that when they came to him, they said, Ahsan kama ahsan Allahu ilayk. Wala tansa nasibak min ad-dunya. Look at the deal that they get. Like, this is so wise. So they see Qarun, and Qarun always dressed very nice. People that have done very well, they want people to know that they've done very well. Right? So Qarun would dress very nice. Somebody saw him and they said, Qarun, be good to people in the way God has been good to you. Like God has given you a great deal, you should be generous. But then they said, وَلَا تَنْسَى نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. But don't forget yourself. That is so balanced. We're not telling you to feel guilty and ashamed about everything you have. We're just saying, give something for God's sake, and don't forget yourself. The things that you enjoy, that's okay. The thing that angered him was the fact that they attributed his money to God giving it to him. God, inni utituhu ala ilmin indi. I was given what I have because of a certain specialization that I have. This is what secured for me wealth, not God. My knowledge, my expertise. This is why I have what I have. Don't ever attribute what I have to God. Right? Some of us, it would be hard for us to imagine that. But these are personalities that are covered in the Quran because these are things that actually happen. So he's telling you, you want to know that you have a good heart? Look at when you are prospering. If you're still remembering God, even then, you have a good heart. When things are going great, and you're still like, no. We have to remain humble, and we have to be thankful. Even then, mashallah. The person that walks into their mansion and says, Bismillah, ala Allahi tawakkalt. In the name of God, I rely on God. Hada min fadli Rabbi. This is from the favor of my Lord. They have a good heart. You know, sometimes I joke with brothers because I like cars. I know a lot of brothers that like cars. And I say, when you jump in that, limited edition sports car, do you still make the dua that you used to make in the old car? You still say, Subhanalladhi sakhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. You say that in the Ferrari too? Some of my guys look at me and say, yeah. I say it in the Ferrari too. He's saying that's a sign that you have a good heart. You see? That's a sign that you have a good heart. When you used to take vacations at Wisconsin Dells, get out of the car and say, mashallah. Now you're going to the south of France and you get off the plane and still say, mashallah. Mashallah. Right? I remember we used to go to the restaurants with bad service on Devon Street. No, I'm just kidding. The food would be served, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. Now we go to some of the finest restaurants in Chicago, finest restaurants in the country, Michelin-starred restaurants. Are you still in there saying, mashallah? Are you still in there saying, mashallah? Alhamdulillah. Or is it not in vogue in those places? See, that's the other thing. See, when you are with the humble, it is almost expected that we're going to talk about God. But when you're with the wealthy, it's not in vogue to talk about God there. You say, oh my God, I might seem unsophisticated if so you say your Bismillah real low. When you with those people, Bismillah. You go ahead and you start eating. Right? When you sit at Italian Express, Bismillah. No, guys, I'm being serious. You're at Italian Express, the pizza comes out, Bismillah. You're at one of those really, really nice restaurants. The food comes out, and you're with all of your colleagues. Bismillah. Bismillah. I don't want to think I'm one of those, closed-minded, stupid religious people. You know what I'm saying? No. When things are going good, if the heart is still connected to Allah, this is how you know you have a good heart. There's nothing that I appreciate and just admire like a wealthy, God-fearing person. There's nothing more beautiful than that. A person that none of what Allah has given me has distracted me from Him. Even though God has given me a great deal, I'm still just like I was before I had it. Alhamdulillah. He says, but if your heart is not good and you want to repair your heart, seek repentance, convert your spiritual state from absence to presence, and don the robe of humility and meekness. For hearts can be healed, but if you stuff your belly and brag about being full, you are like a lamb that is being fattened for slaughter. Indeed, have you not slaughtered yourself? Right? So, in other words, look, especially when things are going well, you have to sometimes, and I feel strongly about this, sometimes it's good to have like some very intentional humility, right? Like, don't wear all of your best jewelry all the time. Sometimes go out without that. Don't drive your nicest car all the time. When you're hosting somebody, don't take them to the most expensive restaurant all the time, right? Don the robe of humility and meekness, like intentionally, like make that like a part of your practice, where it's kind of like, well, I don't have to be in that mode all the time going as hard as I can to show the best of what I have and what I've been given all the time. Sometimes intentionally lighten up on that a little bit, man. And you will find that your heart will be enlivened. You will be reminded. You know, I was told a story once about one of the richest people in, I forget which country, but sometimes on a Sunday he would just put on regular clothes and go down to the soup kitchen and just serve people. And there was nothing about him that would indicate, man, this is such and such, the captain of industry. And he said he needed to do that every week because of his lifestyle, jumping in and out of helicopters and private planes. But my Sunday, man, I had to be at that shelter just helping people with nothing that conspicuously identified me as this person. Now, maybe we don't have that kind of wealth, but maybe we do. Right? Maybe to some people we do. Maybe there are some people who look at us and think, dang, I wish I could live in the South Loop. I wish I could have. Right? Some people look at us like that. To do things that like we're intentionally not flaunting our class status is a good, healthy spiritual practice. I don't always flaunt what I have and what I wear. I don't always flaunt what I have and where I go eat. I don't always flaunt what I have and what I drive. I don't always flaunt what I have in, the places I vacation. Sometimes I intentionally do things that are just more simple, right? For some of us, it's like, man, I fly economy sometimes. Sometimes I sit back there with the people sometimes. Yeah, I did it once. No, it's good. These are good practices, man, that even when you know you could afford to sit in business select. Nah, sometimes I book a regular ticket sometime, man. It's cool. Sometimes I take the train, man, right? It's cool. Sometimes I drive the other car sometime. It's cool. He's saying, if you are a person that you find that your heart is distracted by the good that God has given you, intentionally ease up on a little bit. Your heart will come back to life, inshallah.